Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Was the Demon Warrior Part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Naruto couldn't believe that Master Hinata had become his friend. To be honest, it was pretty amazing, but he knew he couldn't take it for granted. He didn't want to take the chance of losing what he had, which was still possible. But, damn it all, he would do anything to be the best friend she had ever had in her whole life. There were so many things he could do with his life, but he had no idea what they were. The young man walked out of his room in the Crimson Palace and let out a soft sigh of happiness as he made his way to the Grand Hall. He had to make sure that his meeting with the Grandmaster didn't go wrong. Again, what was his name? Oh right, Jiraiya. People knew that he was very good at Toad Art Jutsus. Even though he knew it would be a great honor to meet a great master like him, it was a rare thing. As he walked down the hall, he saw that all of the other masters' doors were open, and that they had left. He or she must have gone to the gym. He remembered that his father had told him that a master who didn't have any special lessons would be in the training hall so they could use their skills and sharpen them like a sword. The young man closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. He could feel his heart racing in his chest. He thought his heart was going to burst right out of his chest. He tried to get it to calm down by putting his shaking hand over it. Yet, it just didn't seem like it would listen to his right now. There was no way he could make it stop. When the young man opened his eyes, he thought it would be best to just do it and be done with it. Still, he was so nervous and scared. What would happen if the Grandmaster tried to kick him out? What if he was going to try to get him to fight him? There was no way that he could beat someone like him in a fight. Since he hadn't had any official training, there was no way he could win, and he knew it. Maybe I just think too much about everything. Naruto told himself that he needed to stop thinking this way. He had been picked for a reason, after all. No matter what the reason was, he still had no idea. But things always happen for a reason, right? Even though he almost killed someone all those years ago, his father had kept him around for a reason. That must have meant something, right? The young man smiled a little and soon found himself outside, where he could see that it was a bright and sunny day. Maybe it would still be a good day. Nothing could possibly ruin this day for him. He was in a good mood and nothing could ruin it. Also, he might be able to see Hinata after his meeting with the Grandmaster. Maybe they could have lunched together or something. He started walking down the long path from the sleeping quarters to the Grand Hall while he was laughing to himself. At least, he was told that it held all of the great things from past masters. Something made him wonder what it would be like to be in that kind of place. Still, he had to be careful because he still felt like a visitor here, not like he belonged. Naruto looked at his hand for a moment, then focused his chakra and made his claws appear before making them go away. He thought to himself, would they even accept me if they knew the truth about me? Then he sighed and got up to go. He was starting to feel sad, which was the last thing he wanted to do. No, I'm not going to keep doing this to myself. I have to change, and I won't let my past rule me. I will fight with everything I have to make sure it never happens again. The young man thought with a smirk on his face, no one can control me but myself. He nodded to himself and started running at the speed he usually kept to himself. He wasn't going to let fate or destiny push him into a deep hole. He would make sure he got himself out of the hole of despair and into the open air of happiness. The young man nodded again and started doing some flips in the air, hoping that would help him relax a bit. He had no idea what would happen at his meeting, so he might as well be ready for anything. Hinata could be there, maybe. He said it while his face was red. Damn it all, he couldn't stop thinking about the woman with the blue hair. Since he was a teenager, she was his biggest crush, and now they were so close. Not to mention that he was still thinking about last night. He thought it was something that would always be in his mind. When he put his hand on her chest, it was both soft and firm. Even though she was a strong fighter, she didn't beat him up. He knew that Hinata was a shy girl who just wanted to be able to protect herself, those around her, and her heart. Maybe they were more alike than he was willing to admit. Maybe, in the end, they could help each other. He'd have to find out, and he'd be careful not to make her mad. Naruto got to the main room. He could hear the Grandmaster's chest rise and fall. Even though he knew he had to go inside, the fact that someone was waiting for him there made him a little nervous. After taking a deep breath, the young man slowly walked inside while looking around him. He could see some of the old weapons that had been used. Staffs, swords, tridents, and other weapons. There were so many weapons that he had no idea who might have owned them before. As the young man looked around, he saw paintings of warriors from the past. All of them were either former students who had left or who had become masters or even grandmasters of the palace. As Naruto walked along the walls, he saw a man holding a staff that a monk would have used. The man's hair was spiky, but he couldn't tell what color it was at the time because the painting was so old that the colors had faded with time and might need to be redone. "Are you done looking?" a voice asked, and Naruto turned around to look at a tall man. He had long, spiky, white hair, dark eyes, and a little bit of a tan from being out in the sun for long periods of time, but not too much. He just wore a green shirt, green pants, and a red vest. He wore a headband with a metal plate on his forehead. There were red lines in his eyes that almost looked like bloody tears. The man, on the other hand, looked angry, as if having Naruto in the room with him was a sin against the whole palace. Naruto couldn't help but gulp a little as he slowly made his way over to the master. He had to be careful not to make him angry, since he had to stay here for a while and didn't know how long. He was just hoping he didn't make anyone mad. Naruto got down on his knees and then held out his hands to the man as he said, "It is an honor to meet you, sir." Naruto was taught when he was young that if he ever met a great master, he would have to show him respect in any way he could. He just felt like he should be able to show the man some kind of respect. Still, Naruto could feel the anger and hate coming from the master who stood in front of him. He wanted to shake with fear and worry, but he didn't know what to do. "You are not made to be the legendary warrior," the master said this as he slammed his foot into Naruto's back, making the fox demon gasp in pain and fall on his stomach. Before Naruto lifted his head and groaned, the master moved his foot and walked away. How was it that this man could feel so much hate, and Naruto wasn't going to pass out or something? Oh, that's right, because he wasn't getting beat up. Not yet, at least. But, Master Hiruzen, Naruto spoke in a whisper. He can say whatever he wants. He was about to pick Master Hinata, and then you crashed into the training hall. The man yelled as he walked away toward a statue of the man Naruto had seen in a painting. But he couldn't tell who it was yet. Naruto was about to say something, but to be honest, he couldn't think of anything to say. He didn't know what to say to the man to get him to stop bothering him. Still, he knew he had to watch what he said because if he said the wrong thing, he could get beat up again. "Master," the master yelled, "that's Master Jiraiya," as he went to kick Naruto. But Naruto jumped out of the way and landed on his palms before flipping back onto his feet and then falling on his back. Naruto grimaced in pain as he looked up and glared at the older man. At this rate, he was going to make holes in him. Naruto was about to say something when Jiraiya said something else, which made him cough. "You will never be the Furious Fox, and you never will be. This can only be learned by the real Furious Fox." As he said this, he put out his hand with the palm facing up. A blue ball of whirling chakra formed in his hand, and he narrowed his eyes at the blonde man. Naruto could only stare in amazement. He was familiar with this move. It was pretty amazing, but he couldn't help but feel the energy that seemed to flow off the orb that seemed to spin in the master's palm. The Rasengan, Naruto said in a soft voice. "That move only existed in stories." Jiraiya asked with a smirk on his face, "So you know this move?" "Yes, it was said to have been made by a demon. I think it's called the Demon Bomb, and only a few people have learned it, but they've never gotten good at it." Naruto said with amazement that the move had never been fully mastered by anyone. Too much chakra and even more control were needed. But he could tell that this Rasengan was very in charge. "I want you to try to prove that you're the real warrior. You should try to learn the Rasengan in 6 months. If you figure it out by then, I'll admit that you're the Furious Fox we've been waiting for all along." Jiraiya left Naruto on the ground and walked away, saying, "Kakashi, I know you're there. Take the boy and go right now." Before Naruto could even ask what he was talking about, the gray-haired, masked man came out of the shadows and helped Naruto get up. He then walked with the young man out of the hall. Naruto, on the other hand, didn't understand what was going on, what just took place. Naruto sat down under a tree and tried to figure out what Jiraiya was asking him to do. He had 6 months to learn a move that was almost impossible to master. To be honest, Jiraiya looked like he knew a lot about how to move, but he never really knew it himself. Still, he couldn't really do anything about it. He just felt like it was hard for him to use it at all. The young man closed his eyes for a moment and leaned against a tree as he waited for the Master of Thunder and Lightning to talk to him. "Naruto, are you alright?" asked Kakashi. "I'm good, so why are you still there? I thought you'd leave me alone, not to be rude." But Naruto whispered that he was surprised that he had stayed here. People would normally have left him alone by now. They wouldn't want to have anything to do with him and might even try to hurt him. Kakashi sat down beside Naruto and looked up into the sky. It was quiet between them, and the only sound they could hear was the birds chirping. Naruto thought that Kakashi might not say anything, so he got up from where he was sitting under the tree and walked back to his room until the master finally spoke to him. "Naruto, I wanted to make sure you were okay. Jiraiya is usually mean and cruel to people he doesn't trust. That is an understatement, Naruto muttered to himself. The way Jiraiya treated him was more than enough to make him doubt her. Even though he didn't trust many people, he never hurt anyone unless they gave him a reason to, which is rare. Naruto shut his eyes and tried to figure out what he should do. It was impossible for him to learn that move in 6 months. He might not have been the chosen one after all. There was no way he could do anything to help other people. Kakashi turned to look at the young man with the blonde and red hair. Even though Naruto tried not to notice, he could feel that his eyes were on him. It was strange to have someone else look at you. He was used to his father's worried looks, but it was strange and nerve-wracking to have someone else look at him. Kakashi said, Naruto, before adding, I think you can master the Rasengan. You are the chosen warrior for a reason, and I know you can bring peace to Konoha. All you have to do is believe in yourself. How can I have faith in myself when all I am is a monster? Naruto asked before he pushed himself up and looked at Kakashi with a hatred and anger he didn't know he had. But it wasn't meant for him. Instead, it was meant for himself. He said, because of who I am, Kakashi, no one will ever accept me as the Furious Fox. No one will ever let it happen, no matter what you say. His eyes turned red for a moment, and he yelled, I'm just a fucking monster, Kakashi. Why did you even let Grandmaster Hiruzen pick me? Tell me that. Kakashi just looked at him for a moment before pushing himself up and putting his hand on the younger man's shoulder. Naruto gave him a hard look, as if he was daring him to say something that would get him a punch. He wanted to hit something, anything at all. He just wanted to hit something and go back to his father's shop. He just wanted to get rid of all this pent-up anger before it destroyed him. You remind me a lot of him, Kakashi said in a whisper, making the young man look up in surprise. Kakashi looked at him with nothing like fear, hate, or disgust in his eyes. Naruto, Master Hiruzen chose you because he could feel your heart. He could tell that you had something that could help you protect the people in the village. Nothing could compare to that feeling. It was his dream to find the warrior, just like it had been for others before him. Naruto just stood there and frowned at him. Still, he didn't stop the master. Hiruzen knew from the start that you were destined for great things. Naruto, you were born to be a warrior, and I know you are destined for great things. You just have to let people into your heart and learn to trust not only other people but also yourself. Naruto made a small frown and thought about whether or not he could do it that way. Even though it didn't make sense to him, he knew he had to try to help. The young man closed his eyes for a moment and asked, How can I? I've been told I'm not good for a long time, Kakashi. Kakashi tapped him on the shoulder and said, Naruto, think about it this way. If you can master the Rasengan, you know you deserve to be called a master because you've done something that not even other masters have been able to do. Since Naruto was born, no one has been able to master this move. Even longer than that is possible. You have to know, Naruto, that it will be hard, but you can do it. I believe in you, and so does Hiruzen and even Master Hinata. Naruto seemed to perk up when he heard Hinata's name. He and Hinata had just become friends, so why would she already trust him? It didn't make a lot of sense to him, but he'd never had a friend before, so what the hell did he know? Not very much, that's for sure. Looking up at Kakashi, Naruto said, alright, I'll do it. But why? Kakashi smiled and said, well, first you'll need a balloon and water to fill it. Naruto gave the water balloon in his hand a dirty look. He could feel his chakra moving, but it never stayed that way for long. He had no real training, so he couldn't control his chakra long enough for it to stay in the water or even on his palm. Naruto sat down and growled to himself. He thought he should take a short break. He sat down under the tree and closed his eyes, leaning back and trying to figure out what he was doing wrong to keep his chakra in the balloon. There had to be something he didn't know. Still, he had no idea how to do it. The young man opened his eyes and tried to think of anything he could do to make his chakra form. But it seemed like nothing worked for him, no matter what he tried. Even though he had been trying to do this for weeks, he just couldn't get his chakra to listen to him. What am I supposed to do with my chakra? Naruto yelled, I can't do it, as he slammed his fist into a tree and let out an angry growl. You might not be able to do it because you are trying too hard. A soft voice said something, which made Naruto yelp and turn to his right. When he saw a tall man standing there, he fell over. The man wore a black shirt with a high collar that covered the bottom half of his face. He wore black pants that went with the dark glasses that covered his eyes. Naruto was surprised that the man's skin was a little tanned because he was standing in the shaded part of the tree. His brown hair was spiked up, and it looked like he always had goosebumps because his hair always stood on end. With a frown on his face, Naruto asked, Who are you? I'm the bug boss, Shino, he said. Before he sat down next to Naruto, the man said something. He didn't look at Naruto because he seemed to be thinking about what he was going to say next. Naruto shook his head. He didn't know why a master had decided to join him. He had only really met Hinata, so he thought that the other masters were upset that he was chosen instead of them. He closed his eyes and tried to concentrate on his chakra again, but just like the other times, it was gone before he could get a full hold of it. That's not the way to get your chakra to listen to you. You haven't even looked at your chakra to prove that you deserve it. What do you mean? With a glare, Naruto said. Shino looked up at the sky and asked, have you ever thought about how people can either control their chakra or let it control them? To be honest, that had always been a mystery to Naruto. How someone's chakra could eat them up or how they could be in charge of it. It had always bothered him, but he always thought it was because they wanted to hurt people because they had power. Naruto frowned and asked, what do you mean by being controlled by it? Shino didn't immediately answer. He almost looked like he was going to leave, but he stayed where he was and turned to the young man with blonde and red hair. Because the chakra we all have is alive, Naruto said. It can either help us or hurt us. People meditate so that they can talk to themselves in their mindscapes and fight their chakras for control. You could say that the spirit of the chakra fights, and if you have earned its respect, you can use your chakra. If you fail, though, it eats you up and controls you. Naruto couldn't believe it, because how could that even be possible? Chakra being able to make someone do what you want. He didn't know whether or not he should believe that, but it made him think. What if it were the case? He couldn't even use his chakra if he tried to face the spirit of it. What if I don't face it and just keep trying to use it? He asked, looking up. That's not a good plan. If you keep trying to get something that isn't yours yet, it will attack you, weaken your body to the point where you can't move, and then take over your body. When Shino said that, Naruto's face turned white. God, it's hard to believe that it hasn't hurt him yet. He had been trying to do this for weeks, after all. There must have been something that stopped his chakra from making him like that. The young man took a soft breath and looked up at Shino, asking, what should I do? He frowned a little, not sure what else he should do. He knew there had to be another way for him to use his chakra, but he was afraid of what the answer would be. Shino rested his back on the tree. He just sat there and thought while he looked up at the sky. It looked like he had almost fallen asleep. Still, he didn't know what he could do to get this person to talk more. Was this something he did all the time, or just with new people? He only hoped that the answer would be something he wanted to hear and not something he didn't want to deal with right now. You need to meditate to get into your mind and face your chakra. Shino said something quickly, which made Naruto jump a little. You have to stop that, Naruto yelled. You can't do anything else, Naruto. Are you sure? And how in the hell do you know my name? Just do it. Shino was quiet. Naruto sighed as he crossed his legs, put his hands on his knees, and closed his eyes. He breathed in and out as he tried to clear his mind. He didn't know what to do or how it worked, but he knew he might have to be careful. For a few minutes, he kept breathing in and out, until he started to get angry. Naruto asked Shino, how can I tell if this is working or not? Before opening his eyes to see Shino, he frowned when he realized he was in a different place. It was a waterfall, and in the big lake there were many rock platforms. The red sky, on the other hand, showed him that he was no longer in the real world. The only other thing in the area was a big cherry tree that stood in front of him. What shocked the young man was what he saw in the tree. The man was sitting in a tree. He looked bored, like he hadn't done anything interesting in years, maybe even decades. He didn't know for sure. Naruto called out with a blink of his blue eyes. What do you do? The man turned to look at the young man, and all he could see through the tree's shadows were the young man's red eyes. Naruto took a loud breath and wanted to move away from the man and the tree he was sitting in. He jumped down from the tree, and his shape became clear. He was tall and wore a red robe with long sleeves that split down the sides to his waist, showing his black pants. His feet were wrapped in white bandages, as if the idea of shoes made him uncomfortable. He still didn't know how that happened. He had long hair that reached at least to his shoulders, but it didn't look as long as Naruto's. The red hair on top of his head and down his back was spiky. Behind him were 9 tails that moved, and on top of his head were a pair of red fox ears that he couldn't see without his demon eyes. His eyes, on the other hand, showed no emotion. They didn't have any feelings and didn't know anything about kindness or compassion. He didn't know if this man was on his side or if he wanted to take over and have the young fox demon become possessed by the chakra. There was only one way to find out, but knowing that it scared him anyway didn't make things any better. You want my power? You must beat me. The mystery man laughed, then narrowed his eyes, pulled one leg back, and put himself in a fighting position. Naruto narrowed his eyes. This seemed like a strange thing for a manifestation to do, but how would he know? No one could tell if this was normal or if it was because he was a demon. Naruto said with narrowed eyes, of course I want power. I can't do what I need to do any other way. But as soon as he said that, he was sure he saw something flash in the eyes of the older man. A moment of what? He wasn't really sure, but it had come and gone as quickly as it had come. He didn't know why this man was sad, but he didn't care about it at the time. He was on a mission, and that mission was to take control of this chakra. No matter what, he had to win and take control of the situation before it took control of him. Naruto said with a growl, "I'm going to fight you so I can learn how to control my chakra. I won't let you stop me." After saying that, he ran forward, hoping to beat this guy. To be honest, he didn't even know if he had the strength to beat this guy. He wasn't going to let it stop him, though. He had to fight, have a good kick, and hope that he could get control of his chakra. The red-haired man seemed to just appear in front of the young man and hit him in the stomach with his fist. He opened his eyes wide in pain and felt all the air leave his lungs. Before he could think of anything, the red-haired man punched him in the stomach. Naruto wrapped his arms around himself and fell to the ground, saying, "You're weak." The man with red hair growled. Naruto was in so much pain that he coughed and spit up, and the pain seemed to just flow through his body. How could something like this happen? This man was a great fighter, but he was really just his chakra. How did that even happen? Shouldn't his chakra be an extension of him? "You're weak, and you don't deserve this chakra." Before he started to walk away, the older man growled, "You don't deserve this power because you can't handle it." Naruto growled, but a single punch put him out of the fight. That didn't make him feel good. He didn't know if it was because he was demon or because there was some part of him that was hidden and buried deep in his soul. But he hated the idea of losing. Even more so when it was about protecting the people who lived in his village. "I won't let you walk away from me," Naruto shouted as he ran at him with his 9 tails and ears sticking out of his back. He made a loud growl and slashed at the man, which caught him off guard. The man jumped back. There were cuts on his robes, which made him look down in shock. That did surprise him, so he looked back up and stared at Naruto after he had changed, but the boy just glared at him, which didn't really show that he knew how to fight. "So, you've decided you want to fight. Too bad you're going up against a master fighter." Soon, he just seemed to pop up in front of Naruto, who slammed his foot into the young man's side. This made the young man yelp and fall to the ground, where he hit a tree. "You still need more equipment for training. You still have a long way to go to beat me." Naruto gave a small groan and felt like his head was going to explode. He didn't know if that was even possible for demons to do. Still, it hurt no matter what. The young man tightly closed his eyes and took a deep breath, hoping that he could get himself back up on his feet so he could kick this man's behind. "You're going down," Naruto yelled as he pushed himself back up on his feet and made a dark growling sound. "You don't deserve this power. How do you plan to rule the world if you can't beat me?" Hirama glared at him and let out a growl as he spoke. Naruto just glared. He didn't want to rule this world, he just wanted to protect it. Or at least keep safe the people he loves and cares about most. That was all that was important to him. "If you beat me, you might be able to be in charge. Whoever hurt you as a child should be punished. To get back at the people who made you feel bad as you grew up. They will be afraid of you." Okay, Naruto did want to get even with the people who used to pick on him. They hit him and kicked him. He was hurt so badly that he was almost dead. When he was out of control, they were afraid of him. He knew he couldn't let that happen again, though. To beat himself up until his life was in danger or he thought he was going to die. After all, when Jiraiya was beating him, he almost lost himself. God bless Kakashi for stepping in before it was too late. When he was in that form, it was almost impossible to stop him. As Naruto rushed forward, he threw punch after punch, hoping that one of them would land. But all the older man had done was catch each punch that was thrown at him. He had no idea why he couldn't get a good hit in. But maybe this guy really was a master, or maybe he could see everything Naruto did before he did it. He didn't know, and he didn't think he ever would. Naruto turned his body around and tried to kick him in the head with a high kick. But the man just lifted his arm and blocked the hit. He had to admit that this old man was good. "You're good, old man. I hope you don't get tired of trying to stop me, though." Naruto said this just before he hit the man in the chest with his 9 tails, sending him flying. Honestly, Naruto thought he had won until the old man turned around, landed on his feet, and acted like nothing had happened. "Good try, kid. You can't hurt me because I don't have a body." Before he ran at Naruto, the old man said in a calm voice, "I'm sorry." He hit Naruto with both of his hands, one on his chest and the other on his stomach. Before going through the waterfall and hitting the stone, the younger man went flying. Naruto groaned and pushed himself away from the waterfall. He couldn't believe how real everything was starting to feel. Sure, it was all in his head, but how come he could feel pain but the old man couldn't? The older man just looked at Naruto and laughed, as if he thought this was all funny. but he was trying to look like a cold, heartless man who didn't care about anyone but the thrill of a fight. I won't let you beat me, do you get it? Naruto glared at him and growled, I need to be in charge of my chakra. After saying that, he ran at him, wanting to hit him and beat the older man. He had to win, and he had to do something before it was too late. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to give you that power so easily. Before he tackled Naruto to the ground, the older man growled at him. He made a fist with his left hand as he raised it high above his head and pressed it against his back. This is it, boy. You can't use your chakra anymore. I can't live without it. I have to if I want to protect my family and close friends. Naruto yelled, squeezing his eyes shut as he tried to calm down. As he tried to calm down, his breathing was becoming irregular. The older man asked, you want this power to protect him? Yes, I have to keep people safe. I have to show that I deserve to be called the Furious Fox, but I can't do that without this power to keep people safe. He had to be able to do this, Naruto yelled, and he had to find a way to beat him, to be able to win. But he couldn't do that if he couldn't even beat this guy. Naruto shouted, I will protect them even if you don't help me. As he closed his eyes, the old man's eyes got smaller, and he threw his fist at Naruto. The young man yelled and closed his eyes tight as he waited for his fist to hit something. He kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and still nothing happened. Even though he heard a fist hit something, he didn't feel any pain. He slowly opened one eye and saw that he was still fine and safe. The man just hit the ground next to his head with his fist. What the hell just went down? He didn't know what was going on, but at least he wasn't dead. You passed my test. Before he got up and pulled Naruto up with him, the older man said, Test? What the hell was he talking about? He didn't win, and he didn't beat anyone, so what did he mean? The old man laughed when he saw the younger man's confused face. See, I do control your chakra, but I think real power comes from wanting to protect. I kept saying that you wanted to use your chakra for evil because I thought that was what you really wanted to do. What did that have to do with anything? Thought Naruto with a frown. But when you said you wanted to use it to protect instead of destroy, I knew you weren't going to use it to get rich. So, I can use it. Naruto asked with a nod of his head. Really? The old man nodded his head before snapping his fingers. This sent a surge of energy around Naruto, not to eat him, but to help him. Before he turned back to the man, the young man smiled and asked, What's your name, anyway, old man? My name. Naruto did nothing but nod his head. The older man laughed, as if no one had asked him that in a long time. He'd only been here since he was born, right? He didn't know, but he did know that he needed to know this person's name in order to use its chakra. Since it was a part of him, it would be strange to call him Naruto or something similar. Kurama, my name is Kurama. Kurama replied with a laugh, and then he snapped his fingers again, waking Naruto up. Naruto was shocked that it had taken him 2 months to finish the first task. Even though the power he had gained was amazing, he still couldn't control it. But he could at least use it up to a point. Sad to say, Kurama would hold back on his power so he wouldn't use too much and go crazy. The young man let out a soft sigh, picked up his scroll, and looked through it, hoping to see what his next task is. The next task is to use his chakra to control his strength and power. He didn't know what to do. Kurama wouldn't even let him use all of his chakra, even though that's what was asked of him. The young man yelled while softly growling, damn it all. I can't take it anymore. How am I supposed to use my power if I can't fully tap into it? He didn't care much anymore. All he knew was that he still had to come up with a plan. Naruto sighed helplessly and leaned back as he whispered, I could just not be good enough. After all, a real warrior would have no trouble with this. The young man tried to calm down by closing his eyes for a moment, but his nerves wouldn't let him. He just felt so jumpy and jittery, and he wasn't sure if he would ever be able to relax. The young man yelled, damn it all, Kurama, as he threw his arms into the air and slammed his fist into the tree trunk. A yelp could be heard from above him. The young man looked up and saw someone's legs wrap around a thick branch above Naruto as they fell through the tree branches. The mysterious person just stood there and looked at Naruto with his black eyes. His hair was short and shaped almost like an upside-down bowl, but his thick, fuzzy eyebrows stood out to him more than his tight green outfit. He smiled and said, hey, you must be Naruto. He then let go of the branch and flipped in the air before landing on his feet. Naruto turned his head a little and asked, how do you know my name? And what were you doing up in a tree? That was a little strange, but a lot of people seemed to be talking about him lately. Shino was an example. With Hinata, it made sense to him because he had at least introduced himself. He knew there was more to it than he thought. Oh, your name is Naruto, and everyone knows it. While we are training, Hinata has been talking about you. Lee said this while grinning. Then he said I was in the tree trying to get a little better at keeping my balance. When you hit the tree, you knocked me down. He looked at Naruto for a moment, confused, before asking besides, how did you do that? To do that, you have to be really strong. He tilted his head and smiled, then said, "Come on, I'll show you how to use your youth strength." Naruto made a small frown and shook his head. "No way, I don't think I'll be able to control my strength. Trust me, I've tried my whole life, but I've given up at this point. I don't have much control over it, but I do have some." Before leaning his back against the tree, Naruto said, only to yelp in pain when someone hit him on the back of his head, or at least more on the side of his head. Naruto screamed and fell on the side of his head as he yelped, "What in the world? Why did you hit me?" He gave the man next to him a mean look. He wouldn't have been able to hit him that hard, right? He stood up while grunting and saying, "If you do that again, I'll kick your behind." Somehow, pow, Naruto yelled, "Stop it, you son of a whore." Lee shook his head as he spoke, "No, this isn't a trick. Whenever you feel like you're losing confidence, I'll hit you. This will be a test from me, and it will show how young we are." Naruto grumbled. He had no idea how he was going to deal with this. He just wanted to beat this guy up badly, but he knew he couldn't beat a master. "Tao, stop that, damn it," he yelled, but he could have sworn he heard Kurama laughing in his mind as he did so. The young man swore, with a little growl, that he would get some kind of revenge on the fox man who lived in his head, but for now, he would have to focus on the man in front of him and his methods of helping him, which, to be honest, didn't help him very much. "I'll stop hitting you when you learn to stop doubting yourself," Lee just answered, and he was still smiling. How was this guy a master in the first place? He was just annoying. At least he knew he was an expert. "Hey, are you like a master or something? Because you make me think of a guy who beat me up." With a frown on his face, Naruto said, "I am a master, I'm one of the 5. I try to get stronger and faster." Shino is someone you've already met. He uses bugs. He laughed a little and then went over to Naruto and helped him get up. This person was a genius. How did that even happen? He just seemed so strange, but he couldn't be sure what it was. The young man finally shook his head and said, "First, we'll focus on your strength." Naruto wasn't sure if he wanted to put his strength to the test. He didn't mean to hurt anyone, after all. It didn't seem possible that he would be able to hold back his strength. He had been able to hold back a little bit, not enough to kill anyone, but enough to send someone to the healer. The young man shut his eyes and whispered, "I don't want to make an effort to train. With one punch, I can kill someone." "Pow, what the heck? Quit that." Naruto yelled and rubbed the back of his head, swearing that he could feel a lump growing there. How come this guy didn't feel bad about hitting him because he wasn't sure of himself? It didn't make sense to him, but he had to stay with this man. Naruto asked with a little growl, "What do you want me to do?" "Simple. You have to hit this tree as hard as you can. I want to see how hard I have to work with you by putting your strength to the test." With a big grin on his face, Lee said. To prove his point, he punched the nearest tree. His punch was so strong that it cracked the trunk a little. Naruto didn't think it would be good to hold back, but he knew he had to do something, so maybe he could hold back a good amount of his power and strength. He took a deep breath and walked to another tree before stopping to look at the tall tree. This was going to be strange, but he knew Lee was waiting for something to happen. The young man closed his blue eyes and felt his power growing. Kurama tried to hold back some of his power, but he knew he had to be careful, even if the man in his chakra was holding him back for his own safety. The young man took a deep breath and held his fist back as he felt himself calming down. When he opened his eyes, he threw his fist at the tree's trunk, which, if he hadn't trained, would have broken the skin on his knuckles. He should have felt pain, but he knew he had to act like he did when his fist hit the other person. Crack. Wow, what was? Crash. Naruto stared at the tree that had fallen over with wide eyes. What's going on? He was sure that he had kept himself in check, but had it been enough? The young man took a few deep breaths and slowly turned his head toward Lee. He watched as Lee's punch seemed to leave the other man speechless. This was it. He was going to call him a monster, chase him out of the palace grounds, and then he would never be able to finish his mission of mastering the Rasengan. Lee smiled and yelled, "That was incredible." "What?" Naruto asked with a scowl. Lee smiled even wider as he said, "I had no idea that someone could have so much power. Even though it will take longer to help you, it will be worth it." He laughed a little more before going to see how the tree was doing. Still, Naruto didn't understand why someone didn't fear his strength. Why didn't he just call him a weirdo and be done with it? The young man shook his head and then followed Lee as he got a better look at the tree. "Wow, it really went through. How do you not harm someone?" Lee asked, his face looking confused. "I'm not sure, to be honest. My whole life, both my dad and I worked in a noodle shop. Dad and I worked hard every day to make people happy with our noodles." He added with a sad smile, "I never wanted to fight anyone again because I was afraid of hurting someone." Lee just looked at him, and his face said nothing about what was going through his mind. Who knows what he could be thinking about in the first place? He kept telling his story while his shoulders fell. "The only time I really fought was when I fought back to protect my dad's shop. I fought back, but I seemed to have some control over what I did and how strong I was. He gave a soft sigh and then sat down on the broken tree trunk. Lee yelled, I got it. The young fox demon fell over from surprise. What was he thinking at that moment? You could never get control of it because you were afraid. Naruto pushed himself back on the trunk and frowned as he looked at the young man with black hair, as if they were wondering what he was talking about. Don't you get it, Naruto? When you're scared, you can't control your actions or your strength. When that happens, you do everything you can to get away. But when you were protecting your father's shop, you didn't care about getting hurt. You just wanted to protect the shop and your father. When he thought about that, Naruto just looked at him and crossed his arms. It did make some sense to him. When he was guarding the shop, he didn't feel afraid. All he cared about was protecting the people there and, of course, his father's store. He said this while briefly closing his eyes. How do you know that's what happened? I've always been told I shouldn't fight because he stopped himself before shaking his head to get those thoughts out of his head. Lee cocked his head and asked, because of what? Just say that bad things happen. When it does happen, it's never good, and I can't be around bad feelings when I'm in a fight. Before he moved on, Naruto said calmly that maybe he did need to leave this place after all. He couldn't train because if he did, he might lose control again, and it would only get worse until he couldn't handle it anymore and would never get out of it. Cow. Naruto yelped in shock, and then he held the back of his head because it hurt. Stop it, you son of a BTCH. He yelled. The pain was so bad that he could almost feel it in the back of his eyes. He leaned down and groaned in pain. He didn't want to scream again because he thought that if he did, it would hurt even more than it did after his last few screams. Lee let out a soft sigh before walking over to the man who had fallen and helping him get up. Naruto groaned a little as he pushed himself up onto his feet. He just wanted to forget about the pain, but he knew he could never do that again. He was sure that one more hit would knock him out. Naruto was about to say something when Lee stopped him. He was groaning a little. I'll help you get over your fear of hurting other people and find your courage. I will help you get through it, and maybe I can also help you get faster. How fast was he? He didn't have any trouble with that because he was already very fast. Had a lot of control over that, and he was always glad for that. The main reason was that it helped him get away from people who wanted to hurt him. Naruto calmly said while rubbing the back of his head, I don't need help with how fast I can go. I can move quickly enough. He didn't want to work on it, but he knew that if he showed anyone how strong he was, they would think he was a monster. Lee asked Naruto, can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you keep putting yourself down anyway? Even Hinata hadn't asked him that, which surprised him. Maybe she was waiting for the right time to ask. That he wouldn't know though he could give some kind of answer, just not the full answer. No one sees me for who I really am. Instead, they see me as someone I'm not because they don't know who I am or that I'm not like what they've been told. Before he started walking away, he closed his eyes for a moment. He might have needed some rest. He just wanted to go to bed and forget about everything. Lee had him in his arms before he could get away. I don't see Naruto as anyone but himself. Come on, let's train. We are young and should make the most of it. Our youth lasts as long as we let it. Oh, if he only knew the truth about that. His own youth was, in a way, eternal. After all, he would outlive everyone and look young for thousands of years, or even longer. Okay, let's train. With a small smile, Naruto said. Naruto gave a small sigh. He was trying to concentrate on his power, trying to build up his strength so that it would be strong enough to break through the thick rubber ball. It was strange being around Lee. All of that training was strange, especially because he had to keep the weights on him. It took a while to find the right weights for Naruto because the ones Lee had to use were still way too light for the young demon. As he looked at the rubber ball, the young man shook his head and let out a soft sigh. He could see that the ball was trying to release chakra through the holes it was trying to make, but it wasn't enough. Kurama's voice said, you have to stop holding yourself back, which made Naruto yelp and drop the ball. He looked around to see where the voice was coming from, but he didn't find anything. He might have been going crazy. I'm talking to you through your chakra network, you big doofus. It's the only way I can get in touch with you, but it takes a lot of energy. Kurama said something, then let out a tired sigh. Maybe it did wear him out a lot. He probably hasn't talked to him before because of this. He had never thought Kurama would talk to him unless Naruto went into his mindscape. The young man sighed as he sat down and tried to calm down a bit. The young man asked, what do you mean by letting myself down? You still doubt yourself a lot. Naruto, you can't live like this. You can only use this move to its full potential if you stop doubting yourself, believe in your skills, and move on with your life. Think of something you want to protect, something you want to defend and keep safe with your powers. Kurama's words, which were meant to encourage the younger man, came next. He didn't know how that was supposed to really work. To be honest, the only thing he had ever wanted to protect was his father and the shop. That was a one-time thing because his father didn't know how to fight. but he couldn't let himself think about that again. Everyone still thought he was a monster. Only his father accepted the help, but that was because he was his father. Iruka loved Naruto mainly because of this. What I mean, Naruto, is this. You don't trust yourself. You must learn to accept the fact that you are a demon. There's no way around it. There was no way to deny that. Naruto was a demon who tried to live like a human. He had to hide from them because they already knew him to be a monster. The only thing he knew for sure was that no one would ever like him. Kurama gave a soft sigh and said, "This is what I mean, Naruto. You are afraid to let anyone see who you really are. People will learn to accept you, but you have to show them they were wrong by doing something great to earn their respect." Fox demons were once thought of as guardians, but if you keep doing this to yourself, you'll end up in a dark place like a lot of people before you. Dark path. What the hell did that have to do with him doubting his own abilities? He had no idea what was going on, but he didn't think that could be true. The young man shook his head and thought, "I don't think so, Kurama. No one would accept me. Only my dad does, but that's not the same thing. He is my dad, and he loves me no matter what." "What about your mom?" Kurama asked. "I'm not sure who she is. There had only ever been me and my dad. He said once that he would talk about my mother someday, but I don't think he will until he is dying." Before leaning against the tree, Naruto thought, how come Kurama would never stop trying to show him that he needed to stop doubting himself? He wasn't sure why people were trying to get him to change. There wasn't much point in it. On the other hand, he was trying to show Jiraiya that he could do this move to show that he was meant to be the Furious Fox, which had to mean something. Naruto, that does mean something. If you want to prove something, you should show that you deserve the title Protector. You really want to show the world who you are and how you can help them. When Kurama said this, Naruto could almost picture the older man smiling. He did think about everything, though. He thought about how he had wanted to protect people when he closed his eyes, that he no longer wanted to hide who he was. He had never liked hiding who he really was or who he really was. He did want to live with people, help them, and protect them. But he also knew that people, or humans, would never accept him until he did something for them that not even a human could do. He couldn't do anything that would be so great. Even if that was supposed to be him, only the Furious Fox could do that. The young fox demon thought to himself with a chuckle that he wouldn't have anything important to protect besides his father and the shop. Maybe going to see his father would give him the push he needs. Naruto had pushed himself away from the tree and was making his way to the stairs. He was wondering if he should go to the village and buy food for dinner tonight. "Naruto," came a happy voice, which made the young man turn around and blush darkly when he saw who was coming toward him. "Naruto, how are you?" "Your heart beat faster," came Kurama's voice. Even so, before Naruto could answer, he could feel Kurama's presence fading away. He must have run out of time and needed to rest. To talk to him later, he will have to go into his mindscape. But right now, he wanted to talk to Hinata as she and two other girls walked toward him. A tall woman with 4 spiky blonde ponytails and a huge fan behind her is standing to Hinata's right. She wore a simple short purple dress with net stockings, tall black boots, and long black gloves that matched the boots. Her eyes were a teal color, but when she looked at him, they almost seemed to get smaller. He had absolutely no idea what her problem was. He only knew that she seemed a little strange to him, which was a lot coming from a fox demon. The girl on the left was carrying a bow staff. She had on a white shirt with long sleeves, long black pants, and black shoes. Even though her shirt did end at her waist, it almost looked like a long dress because the sides split from her ankles to her waist. He didn't know why she was dressed that way, but he felt like he was looking at a dancer or something. Her brown hair was pulled up into 2 buns on top of her head, and her light brown eyes were beautiful. But her eyes didn't even come close to Hinata's. The young man turned and looked at Hinata while he asked, "So, Hinata, what are you doing today?" He didn't know if he sounded stupid or not, but for now he was just hoping he wouldn't trip over himself on the way to the young woman with blue hair. Hinata just gave Naruto a smile as she told him the answer. "We were going to the village to pick up some things. What do you think?" He couldn't believe she was going to the village to get some things. He gave a small smile. Maybe the visit wouldn't be so boring after all. He looked up at the 3 women, who were all thinking about what he was going to say to them. Hinata, on the other hand, just looked at him and waited for him to talk. "I'm just going to get some food for dinner tonight. I thought it was the least I could do for everyone for putting up with me." He said it with a small laugh. He didn't want Hinata to see that he still had doubts about himself. He didn't know why, but when he was with her, he wanted to be better. He wanted to be a better fighter and a better person when she was around. She didn't need protecting, of course, because she was a master and he was just a beginner. Hinata smiled happily as she approached Naruto and said, "That'd be awesome. Can we go together?" "Are you sure, Hinata, that we'll have time for him to go get his things?" he asked one of the women, not knowing who had spoken. He did nothing but look at Hinata's lovely face. Oh, come on, Temari, nothing bad can happen. In fact, if we brought a guy with us, the men would stay away from us. He thought it was the girl with brown hair and a sweet face who said it. Temari must have been the scary one. When he opened his blue eyes again, he saw that the blonde had her arms crossed and was looking away from the two of them. She was mostly looking away from him and Hinata. Fine, no problem. Before she walked past Naruto and Hinata to get to the stairs, Temari said this. The girl with buns in her hair walked past them with a smile on her face before going out of sight. Hinata just laughed a little and followed Naruto as they went on. Naruto had no idea who they were, but he did recognize the two girls. He just couldn't place where he had seen them before. Naruto, don't worry about them. Temari is mean to everyone. Well, she's soft with almost everyone, except one person. Hinata said with a giggle and then turned back to him. Everyone she meets likes 10-10. Well, at least knowing that 10-10 was nice and Temari was mean to everyone made him feel a little better. Wait a minute. Temari and 10-10. So Master Temari and Master 10-10 are from the 5. Naruto shouted when he finally understood what was going on. He wouldn't have guessed that they were in charge of the palace because they didn't act like they were in charge. Still, looks can be deceiving, and he should have known that. Right now, he was pretty much telling everyone a lie when he said he was a human. He looked at Hinata and wondered if he could keep telling her lies about who he was. She was his friend, after all, and friends don't tell each other secrets like this. Right? Hinata, I have something important to tell you. Naruto started, hoping she wouldn't dislike him. He felt like a knife that had been through hell and back when he thought about her disliking him. He closed his eyes tight and hoped and prayed to whatever god might be listening. Hinata looked at him for a moment, tilting her head to the side because she didn't understand. Naruto, what's up? She asked softly, and the way she said it made him want to run away in fear. Even though he couldn't do it, he still wanted to. He had no choice. He had to do this for Hinata because he cared about their friendship. If he didn't, it would have destroyed him. He said, gulping a little, you see, Hinata, there is something no one really knows about me. My dad is the only person who really knows me. Because of who I am, no one ever accepts me. But I want you to know because you are my first and only friend. This means I'm a. Temari yelled from the stairs, hurry up, you two. Naruto gave a small groan. He was almost done telling her who he was, and he didn't know if he should be thankful or angry. Hinata yelled, coming, and turned to the young man in front of her. Naruto, maybe you could tell me later. We're going to be left behind. She laughed a bit and then ran ahead of him. In reality, he didn't know if he could do it later. He had just lost the courage to tell her that he was a demon. Things never really went well for him. Naruto understood why he had felt calm in the palace. He didn't have to deal with all the people who would just stare at him all day. The young man let out a soft sigh and walked over to a stand. He hoped to buy some noodles or at least some vegetables for dinner tonight. The owner of the stall, on the other hand, just gave Naruto a dirty look as he threw a rock at his head. Get back, monster. I won't try to sell you something. Naruto yelled and held his forehead because he was in a lot of pain. Hinata had seen the whole thing, so she went over to the young man who was hurting. What's wrong, sir? You shouldn't have thrown a rock at him. She didn't know anything about him. He's not allowed to buy anything in this store. Both his father and he know this. We don't serve his kind here. Before the man went to get another rock, he was glared at. Hinata looked like she was about to say something, but the man tripped as he went to throw another rock at them. Naruto moved quickly and stood in front of Hinata. The rock had hit him in the nose, so he took the blow to his face. Naruto. Hinata was shocked to see that the young man now had blood coming from his nose. Naruto shook his head and tried to forget about the pain as it slowly went away. He was lucky that pain like this didn't last very long. When he turned to her, he held his nose and then smiled at her. Naruto, why did you do that? Hinata said with a shocked expression. Because you're my friend. I don't want you to hurt, answered her with a soft smile on his face. A monster having a friend. That's fucking bullshit, shouted the man before he went to get another rock, hoping that this would chase the monster away. Though he never got the chance, for Naruto quickly shot out and grabbed his wrist. Naruto could feel his eyes glowing red from his own rage that had started to grow as soon as he thought about the man slipping again. You gonna hurt me, monster? No, I'm gonna give you some damn advice though. I'd advise you not to throw another rock in case you slip again. You had almost hit Master Hinata. I won't allow that to happen again. With that, he let go, eyes no longer glowing red before he turned to Hinata as he said, maybe my dad can sell me some stuff, Hinata. I can't get anything from here. After saying that, he started to leave. Hinata turned to stare at the man in his booth before she ran after the retreating blonde and crimson-haired man. Naruto, give me your list for a moment. Naruto looked at her and blinked his blue eyes in confusion before pulling a list out of his pocket. She smiled at him, furthering his confusion. He was about to ask until Hinata's answer already beat him to it. They won't sell you anything, but they will sell me something. You'll just have to tell me if it's good or not. Maybe. But first, bend down a little. Okay, that confused him, but he couldn't help but feel like his heart was beating quicker. Was she going to kiss him? Oh god, she was going to kiss him. When Naruto closed his eyes, he felt Hinata's hands on his nose and forehead. Odd, he didn't know what it was that she was doing, but it felt nice and warm. Opening his eyes a little, he faintly saw a soft green light surrounding him, causing him to open his eyes a little further. Was she healing his wounds? Hinata, what are you doing? Healing you. After all, you were greatly unjustified for doing nothing wrong, Hinata said with a smile. When she said those words, he felt like his heart stopped. How could she know that he hadn't done anything wrong when he had done something wrong a long time ago? Pulling his face away from her hands, he said, we should get going. I'm alright, Hinata, you don't need to worry about me. Then, he turned to her and forced a bright smile. We should go get something for dinner tonight. He chuckled a little before going to the stalls in the market, just wanting to get the shopping done. Yet he could never escape all the pain in his heart. If she ever learned the truth about him, she would hate him, run away from him, and call him a monster. The young man tried to ignore the pain that was building up in his heart, which made him shiver. Why is this happening to him right now? He had grown so attached to Hinata that he thought she would kill him if she turned him down. Why is this happening? He spoke in a whisper, glad that Hinata wasn't near him at the time. When he looked around, he saw that Temari and Ten, the other two girls, were also shopping for food, or at least he thought they were. Sniffing the air a little, he smelled ink. Shrugging to himself, the young man made his way to a booth that Hinata was at. It seemed that she had gotten to the booth that sold veggies, yet she couldn't be sure what was fresh or what was ready to use. God bless his cooking skills for all of this. Well, if it isn't Naruto. The voice was one that Naruto had heard many times before. When he slowly turned around, he saw a man with a cut on his left cheek. For to be honest, for claw marks of a small child, he was the guy he had beaten up. The man never let him forget how hurtful he had been to him when they were kids. Naruto had hoped that he would never see him again. This was the man who had ruined his life as a child by making him black out and attack in self-defense so much that Hinata asked with a frown, are you one of Naruto's friends? He looked at him for a while before turning to Hinata and giving her a smile. I wouldn't say that my friend's Missy. I'm Roka. I knew Naruto when we were kids. Naruto stared at him for a moment, wondering what he was going to say next. We used to play all the time until... Play? You tormented me. You hit me so hard that I broke a bone and passed out, the fox demon yelled, and his anger made his claws grow. Wanting to hide his claws, he clutched them into fists, ignoring as they cut into his palms. I had tried to run, but every day you found me, beat me, attacking me. Why couldn't you have just left me alone, huh? Shouted the fox, just letting it all out of his system. Hinata kept looking back and forth between the two men because she wasn't sure if this was really between friends. It was impossible for friends to fight like this. The man, Roka, just smirked a little as he said, what's wrong with Naruto? Don't want your little girlfriend to know you did this. He then pointed to his face where the claw marks were. Naruto narrowed his eyes at Roka. Ever since they were kids, this guy had been nothing but a pain in the behind. Turning to Hinata, he hoped and prayed that she didn't hate him. He was sure that even a human could hear his heart beating because it was so loud. The fear, it was a horrible feeling that coursed through him, and the waiting was killing him for sure. Hinata crossed her arms under her breasts as she said, I don't know how he could have done that. It looks like an animal, not a child, attacked you. She didn't think he did it. Oh right, she believes he's a human like everyone else. Oh god, don't let her believe that he's a monster, a demon. He just wanted to keep up the illusion of him being a human to her for a little while longer. He is a horrible man. He is nothing but a wild animal who needs to be killed. Why don't you get that, you stupid chick? He shouted at Hinata. As soon as he said those words, he had gone too far by calling Hinata a bitch. Quickly, Naruto had grabbed a hold of Roka and slammed him into the wall. His eyes were glowing red again, and he let out a deep growl. Don't you ever call Hinata that awful name again. Do you understand me? He leaned in close, his fangs growing and overlapping his lower lip as he added, because next time I will make those marks on your face seem like playtime when we were kids. Roka's skin went pale at those words, well more at the threat really. Naruto threw him down before he could calm down. His fangs and claws came back, and his eyes stopped glowing. And then he started walking back to Hinata. Roka, of course, said one more thing before Naruto left the area. You really are a monster that should be killed off. What happened? Temari asked as she walked with 10-10 over to Hinata. The three women had no idea what he had just said to Roka, and honestly, he hoped that it stayed that way. He didn't want them to ever find out what he had told them, and he prayed that it would stay that way. Someone kept trying to convince me that Naruto is a monster, came Hinata's reply to Temari. After that, Naruto didn't listen to them anymore. Before he started walking back to the palace, his bangs covered his eyes. He was going to be alone for the time being. Maybe he could use this time to master the second stage. Naruto sat by the tree once more, staring at the rubber ball that resided on his palm once more. He had asked someone else to cook for him tonight. He wasn't in the mood for it now. Closing his eyes, he whispered, and the day was going well until Roka showed up. He gave a soft sigh and then looked at the ball in his hand. He wondered what would happen once he mastered the Rasengan altogether. Was there more to it than that, or was it just to prove that he was meant to be the furious fox? Shaking his head, the young man built up the power once more, trying to see if he could get the ball to burst. Still, he was missing something that would have given him the push he needed. Think of what you felt when that rock had almost hit Hinata, said Kurama's voice, causing him to jump a little. He hadn't heard the old man for a while, and it had surprised him. The young man shook his head and was about to ask him why when Kurama yelled, "Just do it, damn it." This made Naruto sigh. When he thought about that moment, he wanted to protect Hinata. He had wanted to keep her from getting hurt. It was the only thing that he wanted. Even when Roka had called Hinata a bitch, he had just wanted to defend her honor, for no one was to insult her in any way. When he thought about how much he wanted to protect her, he felt his power grow to the point where it sent the ball flying out of control. "What's up?" he said in shock, only to scream in shock when the ball had exploded in his face. The blast had sent him flying into the tree, which thankfully hadn't been very far. Groaning, he looked at his hand and saw that it was a little singed from the blast. So what did that mean anyway? Shaking his head, the young man stood up as he stared at his hand, thinking about how that had happened until he realized, holy shit, I just blew up the ball. Yes, you did. You see, you needed power to burst the ball, of course, but you were holding yourself back with your doubts. The desire you felt to protect Hinata had caused your doubts to disappear so you could protect her, and that power increased, explained Kurama with a chuckle. Naruto just had to grin. Maybe he could do it after all. All he would have to do is to keep believing in himself and to make sure that he would always be able to protect Hinata. So long as that was in his mind, nothing could stop him from keeping everyone safe and mastering the Rasengan. Naruto went to sleep. He decided to take some time off from training. Okay, so that was part of it. The other part was that he didn't want to face anyone else. What if Roka found the girls again and told them he was a demon? He probably shouldn't care, but he was getting to know everyone. Even though he didn't think he could get to know Jiraiya, he was starting to feel like he could trust the other four. As he looked up at the ceiling, all he could think about was how he was going to train. Even though Kurama trained him in his mindscape, that didn't help him at all in his body. The only thing it did was make him move, but his reflexes were still a little slow. The young man pushed himself up onto his feet with a soft sigh. All he wanted was to leave this place. Still, he knew, or rather, he just felt, that he should be here right now. Maybe I'm going crazy because I've had enough. He sighed and got up from his bed. From what I could see, it was time for lunch. Even though he missed breakfast because he slept in, he had something else to do. Cooking was always a way for him to calm down. The young man made his way down the long hallway while trying to quietly laugh to himself. He did wonder, though, why he hadn't seen Kakashi or even Master Hiruzen. He hadn't seen those two in a while, but he never even thought about them. There had to be a reason, but he just assumed they were busy, or that he had been busy trying to learn the Rasengan through all of his training. The young fox demon shook his head and walked into the kitchen, where he saw Kakashi sitting at the table and drinking tea through his mask. How he could drink that much surprised him. Hello Master Kakashi, was the only thing Naruto could say before he went to start getting food to start cooking. Hey Naruto, why are you looking so sad? When Kakashi asked the mysterious teacher how he knew he was having trouble, he didn't know, but he trusted him anyway. I keep thinking that everyone will know what I am, Naruto replied quietly. He knew Kakashi wouldn't know who he was or where he came from, so there was no reason not to say something at least. He added with a sad laugh, I was going to tell Hinata about it, but I was stopped and couldn't say it again. He tried to calm down by letting out a soft, sad sigh and leaning his head against the table. Kakashi seemed to do nothing but sit by the table. He didn't move, or at least he didn't hear him. The young man didn't even think the man would say anything. So, what was the point? He didn't know the answer that would make him feel better and tell him that everything would be fine. He was surprised by what he did hear, though. If they are your friends, or at least Hinata is, she wouldn't care what you are, Naruto. Kakashi said before he got up and walked over to the man with the blonde and red hair. Friendship, no matter how strong it is, will always look past things like what you may or may not be. Naruto looked at him and asked, "What do you mean?" He acted like he was in the same situation. However, when Kakashi sniffed the air, he smelled like a normal person, so he couldn't be like him. Kakashi looked down at the younger man and smiled. "I know everything so well because I have friends who are very different from me. True friendship is strong, but love is even stronger than any other thing in the world." When Kurama said, "He's telling the truth, Naruto almost jumped. He kept that to himself for a while, then gave Kakashi a small smile. The man was definitely strange, but he wasn't sure if those words applied to him. He was feeling bad about himself again because he had too much on his mind. "But, Master Kakashi, how can you be sure of that? Just Kakashi is fine, Naruto. I know this because, as I've said before, I used to be in your position. Many years ago," Kakashi said, with a smile that showed through his mask. "It's been almost 25 years since I last saw them." Then his smile turned sad, and he said, "Since fate was cruel and took my friends away," in a whisper. He tapped Naruto on the shoulder and started to leave. His words, on the other hand, made Naruto turn around in surprise. Nearly 20, but around the time he was born, he lost his friends, right? "Kakashi, what do you mean when you say you're losing your friends?" Naruto asked, confused and shocked. It couldn't be right in any way. His father had told him that he had never left Konoha, but could that be a lie? No, he knew that his father was a terrible liar. Whenever his father tried to lie, his left eye would twitch or his cheek would start to twitch a lot. He didn't know what Kakashi was trying to say, but he did know that it made him think about his past even more. Could this end up having something to do with his mother? Fear. He prayed that was the case. He was interested in learning more about his mom. Kakashi turned away as he said, "I haven't seen them in a long time. Because of a promise I made, they may now be at peace. I just hope they don't hold it against me that I haven't kept it all the way, but I'm still trying." After saying that, he started walking away, leaving a young man with blonde and red hair to his own thoughts. What happened? How could he have gotten even more confused? Damn, Kakashi sure is hard to understand. Naruto said something to himself before getting back to work after lunch. He knew Kakashi was a little strange, but to hear that from him, it threw him off even more. He just hoped that he would find out someday, because he had a feeling that he should remember something. Still, it was so far back in his mind that he couldn't remember, or he couldn't make himself remember. He rubbed his temples to try to get his mind back on the meal in front of him. Still, it seemed like no matter what he tried, he couldn't get himself to pay attention. Maybe it was just hearing Kakashi's story that made me so confused, he said to himself. He didn't think anything else could have made him feel more confused than what he already did. "You will be safe, my little Naruto, don't worry. No one will ever hurt you as long as I am alive. Plus, with someone like our friend looking out for you, nothing bad will ever happen to you, Naruto." Naruto's eyes got big as he looked around and heard a voice in his head. He tried to think about the voice while taking quick breaths. He didn't just recognize the voice, he knew what it was. The voice was so gentle and calm. A voice he could still remember. "Wow, what was that?" he asked, but he wasn't sure if he'd ever get a response. He grabbed his head because just thinking about it made him feel like his head was going to explode. What could be going on? He was so close to figuring out who it was, but it always got away from him. "What the fuck is going on?" the young man yelled because he could feel his body trying to turn into its demon form. He was trying to stop it from changing, but it was trying to. Kurama's voice said, "You aren't ready to remember." Naruto didn't know why, but he could feel a strange kind of chakra trying to build up in his body. Even though it wasn't powerful, it felt different. Soothing, it was spreading to his chakra network like a woven blanket. He felt so tired. "What are you doing, Kurama?" Naruto tried hard to stay awake by whispering. "Naruto, I'm sorry, but you're not ready to hear the truth yet. Knowing now will destroy you in the end." Before Naruto's world went black, Kurama spoke in a calm voice. Naruto didn't want to do it, but his mind and body just couldn't handle the truth at this point. Not yet. Not until he has trained hard in both body and mind would he be able to learn of that truth. First, he had to make sure he was ready for the trouble that was coming. Now, Kurama had some ground control to do, and he knew that he would have to block that memory again, no matter how much it hurt. When the man thought about having to block that memory, it almost broke his heart. Also, after not hearing that voice for so many years, it almost broke his heart to block it again. "Forgive me, Naruto. Naruto, are you okay?" came a voice that was soft and calm. Naruto let out a small groan when he felt something soft under his head. He didn't know how long he'd been out or how he got there. He could only remember feeling a little bit of pain and then nothing. He opened his eyes slowly and looked up into Hinata's worried eyes. How come she looked like she was about to cry? Slowly blinking, the young man could smell the salt from the tears he hadn't yet shed, but he thought he should be noticing something else. Hinata, what? Why are you here? Naruto asked, as his body was starting to get some strength back after resting. He groaned some more, and it felt like his head was about to split in half. Man, he had never had a headache like this before in his whole life. He took a deep breath and turned his head to the side. He could smell Hinata's scent right there, right where his nose could snuggle up to it. This pillow was so soft, man. I went to see what was making that smell in the kitchen and found you lying on the floor, looking like you were in a lot of pain. I asked the healer at the palace to come check on you while I was away. We still have to wait. Hinata told him a little bit about what was going on, which helped him understand why she wasn't getting help. What he didn't understand, though, was why he had passed out. What went wrong? He didn't feel any pain when he was hit, so that couldn't be it. The young man closed his eyes and sighed softly as he nuzzled his pillow. I don't know what it was, but it was comfortable and the smell was so soothing. Hinata made a small noise, but he didn't pay much attention to it. Then, his thoughts started to make sense. Hinata said she had stayed with him when she came to check on a smell, and then sent someone to get the healer. There was no way she would have left him to get a pillow. Eyes snapping open, he threw himself off of Hinata and noticed that he had, indeed, been resting his head on her lap. He had also been nuzzling her while she was sleeping. He yelled, "Oh God, I'm so sorry," as his face turned bright red from blushing. He quickly waved his hands in front of him in fear, then grabbed his head. Everything was moving so fast that he almost lost his balance and fell over. At least, he thought so until Hinata put her arms around him. He made a small grunt as he whispered, "I apologize. I was trying not to look like a fool." He tried to laugh, but the pain in his head came back, making him whine a little. "You're going to be fine. Here, we have the best doctor. Soon enough, she'll be here." Hinata said this with a smile. Naruto let out a soft sigh as he laid his head on her shoulder. Why did this even take place? The young woman asked Naruto, "Do you know what happened to make you pass out like that?" "No," he moaned and then put his face in Hinata's shoulder to hide. "I don't remember. All I can think of is cooking, and then nothing." Naruto couldn't say that what had happened was not strange. No matter how hard he tried to remember, it seemed like he kept hitting some kind of mental block that kept him from remembering what had happened. Maybe it was best that he didn't try to remember. He felt like it was better that he didn't know what it was. For now, he was happy just to be in Hinata's arms. He didn't know what he was feeling when she held him. All he knew was that he loved this feeling. A new voice said, "Okay, I'm here." This made Naruto groan a little. Why did everyone have to make so much noise? "Oh, he's awake, that's great," said in a quieter voice before going over to the two people on the floor. Naruto didn't look up to see who else was in the room with them. All he wanted to do was ignore the pain, and Hinata's scent was helping him do that. "Hinata, put him in that chair. I can do some tests on him now that he's awake." Hinata moved around and helped the young man get to his feet and a chair. Hinata had to hold on to him, though, so he wouldn't fall over and hurt himself. When the young man slowly opened his eyes, he saw a woman with short pink hair. Her eyes were as green as jewels, and on her forehead was a blue diamond. She wore red robes and brown pouches around her waist. Most likely, she was carrying her medical supplies. "Follow my finger, please." Her voice came, and she moved her left index finger from side to side while holding it. He didn't have any trouble with that or with seeing. His eyesight was fine, but his head wasn't. "Good," she said with a smile. "Touch my finger, then your nose, until I tell you to stop." She then held up her finger. Again, that was easy. It must have been to see if he'd hit his head or something. To be sure he didn't have a head injury. Too bad for her, because none of this bothered demons. He almost wanted to smile to himself. Nothing seems wrong, though. "But tell me, what did happen?" "I don't remember. I can only remember cooking. And when I woke up, I was on Hinata's lap," Naruto said before yawning. He just wanted to forget about this whole thing. Oh wait. He pretty much did, since he had no memory of what happened. Scratching the back of his head, the fox demon calmly said, "I don't think you'll find anything wrong with me. Healers have never been able to figure out how my body works because I'm a tough case." Which was true, but it didn't mean that healers didn't still try to figure out what a demon looked like. "Okay, but if you feel like you might pass out again later, send someone to get me," the healer said with a smile before she left. When he couldn't see her anymore, Naruto turned to Hinata and asked why he'd never seen that woman before. Hinata just smiled happily. "That's Sakura. She fights, but she's also one of the best healers we have." So that's why he also felt something strange around her. Obviously not a demon aura, but the aura of a healer and a warrior. Naruto yawned and got up to go back to cooking, but Lee stopped him. "Naruto and Hinata, Master Jiraiya wants us to go to the arena." He wants to see how well the Furious Fox fights. Oh crap, things went downhill for him. As Naruto stood in front of Jiraiya, he coughed. He had yet to see the man since he first began his training for the Rasengan. Even worse, he hadn't even learned how to fight. The only thing that he had learned was how to unlock his chakra, then of course trying to control his speed and strength. Aside from that, he had only trained himself in his mind. He was in his mind, and that was mostly when he was asleep. Jiraiya though looked just as pissed as he ever has. The Furious Five and Master Guy, who had recovered from their battle months before, were standing off to the side. Master Kakashi, of course. They all looked at him, trying to figure out what he could do that would make him the warrior they all thought he would become. To be honest, Naruto was nervous about the whole thing. He didn't want to fight because he knew there was no way he could win. Jiraiya glared at Naruto and asked, "So, how are you doing with your Rasengan training?" "Okay, I'm done with the second level," Naruto replied. "I get it, but Naruto, you're still running out of time. You still have one more task to do, and then you have to finish the mastery," Jiraiya said with a smirk, which made Naruto's eyes go wide. "The third stage is easy, but you still need to train to make sure it is complete and perfect." Naruto narrowed his eyes. Was this guy trying to make him fail just to prove a point? The fox demon yelled, "You son of a whore." He was very angry. "I'll show you that I can do this, even though you haven't been able to." "Why do you think I can't do it?" "Because you're not the chosen warrior." Naruto just glared. He knew that he didn't deserve to be the warrior, but damn it all. He didn't like how this person kept saying it. Right now, this was going to end. He was going to prove to everyone that he was meant to be the Furious Fox, no matter what. He wouldn't let anything stop him, because what could go wrong? "Now, we'll fight to prove it once and for all." Jiraiya said this before he quickly charged at the man who wasn't ready for it. Naruto yelped when he felt the older man's fist against his cheek. Naruto went flying and hit the wall. He was surprised that the old man had so much power. Shaking his head, he pushed himself up and charged, throwing his own punch, only to have it blocked by Jiraiya. Staring in shock, the young man found that the wind had been knocked out of his lungs when the old man had punched him in the stomach. What the hell was he doing? Jiraiya couldn't be this fast because he was a person. Naruto looked up while holding onto his stomach, but Jiraiya's foot hit him in the side of the head. Naruto screamed as he rolled onto the ground, landing on his stomach before he tried to push himself up. Hinata yelled, "Naruto, please stay down." She wasn't sure if he could hear her. In all honesty, Naruto did hear her, but he refused to give up. He didn't know what it was, but he might have been tired of being told he couldn't do it. He had always been told that because he was a demon, he couldn't do this or that. Now, he was finally fed up with it. He wanted to prove himself, prove that he was the man that he should be if he had been surrounded by other demons. A man that would be respected, would be normal among everyone. The young man raised his head and jumped to his feet, then screamed and ran forward. Jiraiya was surprised that Naruto was already getting up, though he wouldn't allow him to win. Naruto kept throwing punches, but they were blocked or missed. Jiraiya had thrown his own blows, and one of them felt like it had popped his shoulder out of place. Naruto had screamed from the pain, holding his shoulder as he glared at the older man before him. Jiraiya just smirked as he said, "Don't try to win, because you can't. Not with your shoulder like that. You're not right." Naruto grunted and then slammed his shoulder into the ground. He screamed as his shoulder went back into place. Everyone was shocked and horrified that he had done that to himself. Pushing himself back up, Naruto growled out, "I won't let you do this anymore. I will prove that I am worthy." With that, he rushed forward. Jiraiya shook his head and then ran ahead. "Sorry, boy, but you've reached the end of the line." With that, he kept throwing punches. His fists were nothing but a blur for the young demon. Naruto was being pushed back step by step with each punch. The young man could feel blood running down his face from the cut on his forehead, blood spilling over his left eye as he tried to fight back. That was the anger he was feeling. Naruto could already tell that his mind was beginning to go. This was bad. Jiraiya's anger, his hate, it was flowing around him like an aura. This was bad, and there was no way he could keep going on like this. Soon, the young man felt the older man holding his shirt. Naruto weakly looked up at Jiraiya. The battle hadn't been very long, he knew that. But with his head throbbing from the pain earlier, he figured that was one reason why he didn't last very long. "This is the end for you, boy," Jiraiya said before throwing one more punch that was filled with chakra and sent Naruto into the wall. Naruto crashed into the brick and felt himself go out of his mind. At this point, there was nothing left for the young man to do. Jiraiya looked at his class and said, "We now know that he was never meant to be the chosen one. We can now go back inside and try again to pick the right one." "Sir, we can't leave Naruto there," shouted Lee. "Someone will tend to him. He is none of our concern anymore," coolly said Jiraiya before he started to walk away. At least, he was until a gust of dark chakra hit him. When he turned around, his eyes got bigger, and he saw a black aura around Naruto's body. He was shocked and asked, "What the?" "Naruto?" Hinata asked in a whisper. Naruto slowly got to his feet, and his blonde hair turned the same color as his ponytail. When he raised his head, his eyes seemed to be glowing red, but they were not very clear. The young man just seemed to stare at Jiraiya, who was causing him pain, as the aura around him made his body shake. Everyone could only watch in shock as the once blonde-haired man's hair turned dark. The only sound around them was a loud roar. Hinata couldn't do anything but stare in shock at Naruto. How could this be the same man who had just been there? She didn't understand it, and it seemed like he was someone else. His eyes almost looked like they were glowing red, and his face was scrunched up in an animal-like way. In that battle, he seemed to have lost all of his humanity. She knew Naruto had said something about this at some point, but she couldn't remember what. What did he tell her before he went into battle? She was just about to say it. Just what the hell happened to him? He looks like he turned into a monster. I'm worried about what will happen in training. What if I'm really close to dying? When I lose consciousness, I turn into a monster. Hinata's eyes got bigger. Was this what Naruto had been talking about? Was this what he turned into when he lost consciousness when in a fight? This couldn't be the same man yet. The look in his eyes, they weren't human. She knew she needed to do something, but she didn't know what. It just didn't make sense that this would happen, unless he has a disorder where he has more than one personality. Or maybe it was something else. A growl was heard through the arena, causing Hinata to stare in shock and a small hint of fear. Even though they weren't afraid of Naruto, they were afraid for him. This was something that he hated. He hated it when he turned into this. There had to be something that she could do to stop this. She knew there had to be something she could do, but she didn't know what it was. Jiraiya yelled, "Stay back," as he looked ready to fight. Hinata just stared. There was no way that Naruto could last in a fight with Jiraiya, could he? Jiraiya ran up to Naruto and tried to hit him in the head to knock him out. Though it seemed that while Naruto was like this, he was more skillful. As soon as Jiraiya had thrown his fist, Naruto had managed to catch it, causing the young blonde now turned crimson-haired man to smirk. He said, "How did you?" And Jiraiya just stared at him with wide eyes for a moment. Though before he could say more, Naruto wrapped his other hand around the older man's elbow and threw him into the ground. The older man screamed in pain, and Naruto didn't seem to be holding back. He's giving it all he's got. He's no longer in charge of his chakra, Lee yelled. Was that the case? Was it his chakra that made him move? It had to be. This darkness that seemed to swarm around Naruto like a thick blanket, was it really chakra or something more? "Hold on, Jiraiya," shouted Kakashi, only for the older man to shake his head. The Thunder Master yelled, "What are you trying to prove? I won't let anyone get hurt, not you or anyone else." Jiraiya groaned, and then he pushed himself up and kicked Naruto in the stomach as he stood up. The young man did a backflip into the air and landed on his hands and feet. The way he stood there, he almost looked like an animal. Before he rushed forward, he let out a deadly growl and ran on all fours. Jiraiya yelled as he ran, "He really is a wild animal." "Stop it, Master Jiraiya," shouted Hinata. Jiraiya yelled, "This has to be done, Hinata, or else he will kill us all." Hinata didn't know what she could do. Could she just stand there and watch the fight? Still, what would happen to Naruto? Would he get out of this alive or would he be beaten to death? She had no idea what would happen, but the master wouldn't allow them to fight at all. Hinata thought of the demons in her books when Naruto swiped at Jiraiya. The demons would fight anyone who tried to hurt them. Why, though, would Naruto fight that way? There had to be a reason for it, but she wasn't sure what it was. Maybe this other persona, believes to be a demon, thought Hinata with a frown on her face. Growling, Naruto swung his body around as he kicked the older master at the side of his head. The older man fell over, rolling on the ground before he landed on his back. Groaning, the older man looked up only to yelp and roll out of the way, only for everyone to scream in shock. Because Naruto's punch was so strong, it made a hole in the ground so big that his arm was in the ground from his hand to just past his elbow. Hinata put her hand over her mouth in shock. He was that powerful. How could he have so much power and not have gone crazy before? She had never thought that someone could be this strong without going crazy. Not only that, but they didn't have any training. It took the five a long time to get as strong as she is now. It just didn't make sense to her. Nothing made sense. Jiraiya yelled, "What the hell are you?" Naruto tilted his head at Jiraiya, his glowing eyes not showing anything other than pure hate and anger. The woman with blue hair couldn't believe that someone like him could be filled with so much hate. More and more, it seemed like Naruto was getting more and more angry as the two men fought. More powerful really, and it just got worse the more those two fought. The young woman closed her eyes tightly and tried to think of anything she could do to help him. But what could she do in the first place? What? How can she help Naruto when he's in trouble? As Kakashi watched the fight, he couldn't help but remember the lines from the prophecy that Grandmaster Hiruzen had mentioned. Damn it, where was the old man anyway? The words kept coming back to him as he shook his head. He couldn't help but think that this had something to do with the prophecy. But his heart is in danger of becoming dark. As long as it keeps living in fear and hate, it will lose its heart. No, this can't be the beginning of him becoming bad. There was just no way that he would be able to do it. There had to be a way to stop it. What was the other line? He knew that there was a line in the prophecy that would help prevent Naruto from turning to darkness. When he saw his friends again, that would be a great thing to talk about. That he had failed to keep his promise and now this had to happen. If it does not feel any love or compassion, then it will surely meet its fate. Hopefully one will hear the plight. Monsters. That's all. He knew that Naruto had been spending time with Hinata a lot lately. The young man had felt a connection to Hinata, and they have a bond that may be strong enough for Naruto to be saved from himself. When he looked at Hinata, he saw that she really did care about the blonde man. But he knew he had to be careful. He couldn't say too much because he knew no one was supposed to know about the prophecy yet. Naruto didn't yet know enough about the task at hand to do it well. As he went to Hinata, he spoke in a whisper, "Hinata, you can save him. He is responding to Jiraiya's anger and hatred." He thought that was the case because he had heard all the stories in the village about Naruto. Just like how he had attacked that Roka boy when they were kids, Naruto had lost control and attacked when he thought he was in danger because of that boy's hatred. Hinata looked up at Kakashi for a moment, wondering if his words were true. Turning back to Naruto, she saw the rage in his eyes. His jaws clenched as if seemed like he was trying to resist something. Or, he might have been trying to fight against this strange change. She wasn't sure what was going on, but she knew there had to be a way to stop it. Naruto stood over Jiraiya, ready to kill him with a blow from his right hand. Hinata knew she needed to move fast before it was too late. As Hinata ran ahead, she could hear everyone yelling at her to turn around, to stop before she got herself killed. She didn't want to listen to them because she was sure that Naruto wouldn't hurt her. After all, she wouldn't have anything to worry about if he was only acting out of hate and anger. At least, in theory, she shouldn't have anything to worry about right now. Hinata kicked Naruto in the head after jumping in the air to get him away from Jiraiya. "Hinata," her master yelled as they both watched Naruto skid away from her attack because it was so strong. Standing in front of Jiraiya to shield him from the angered man, Hinata didn't show any anger, hate, or fear. She just smiled up at him, not letting her heart show the emotions it should have because Naruto seemed to be able to feel them. Naruto just let out a monstrous growl as he took a step forward, looking ready to attack once again. Hinata though just smiled all the more at him, holding out her arms as she hoped that this allowed Naruto to know that she was no threat to him. Smiling gently, she whispered, "Naruto, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you, and I'm not going to hurt you. No one will hurt you anymore." She tried to sound soothing, hoping that would be enough to get him to relax enough to return to normal. Naruto just tilted his head, backing up a bit as he seemed nervous about Hinata. The young woman slowly lowered her hands as she walked toward him. She thought that he might feel threatened by her. "There is no reason to fight anymore, Naruto. I won't hurt you, I just want you to wake up. Could you please do that for me?" Naruto made a soft whining sound and stepped back until he felt his back hit the wall. He seemed to have nowhere to go, which was good news for Hinata. He shouldn't have any reason to want to get away from her. Or maybe he didn't want to hurt her because he didn't feel hate for her. Did he only attack those who felt hate and anger in their heart towards him? It would be something to think about and puzzle over. The young woman slowly reached out to Naruto as she knelt down in front of him and gave him a soft, almost friendly smile. The young woman wasn't really sure what she was to expect from Naruto while he was in this form of his. She only knew that she wanted to be able to wake him up from this trance he was in. It looked like he wanted to get away, but his body wouldn't let him. Naruto suddenly snapped and growled, making Hinata look up. When she did, she saw Jiraiya standing there. "Master, get out of here. Naruto is reacting to your anger. You need to leave, I got it," Hinata said with a glare of her pale lavender eyes. The young woman kept waiting and waiting for her master to move away from them. Jiraiya sighed softly before he backed away, well more like dragged away by Kakashi. Hinata turned back to Naruto, seeing that he was agitated once more. "Relax, Naruto, you're safe." Naruto just stared at her. His eyes looked like they were trying to focus on him. Hinata wondered if he even knew she was there and who she was. The young man just turned his head to the side and looked at her, blinking his eyes as if he couldn't remember who she was or what she meant to him. There was something. She knew that there was something there for him to remember. Naruto sniffed at her hand for a moment before he closed his eyes, as if he was in deep thought. When Naruto slowly blinked, he was in a dark room. Vines had wrapped around him, keeping him in place so he wouldn't be able to escape the fate of his other self, so to speak. The young man never figured out why this kept happening. Why was he going through this? The only thing he remembered was that he was in a fight with Jiraiya after he felt the brick wall hit him and he fell to the ground. After that point, the young man had heard a voice going on in the back of his head. The voice kept telling him to kill them all. The young man shuddered at the thought and tried to figure out what he could do. He had never felt like this before. His mind and body felt so weak, he just wanted to fall asleep forever. He wanted to go to sleep and never wake up again to get away from the physical and emotional pain that had been hurting him for who knows how long. He felt like his body would explode from the pain that was causing all of this. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling like he could just finally rest. Maybe he was never meant to be a hero. All he was meant was to hurt and harm the people who came into his life. When the young fox demon thought about his last rest, he almost smiled, until he heard a growl. When the young man's eyes fluttered open, he looked up and saw his monster self standing before him. His eyes glowing a deep crimson as the hate and anger was flowing not just through him but around him in a thick blanket. "What do you want?" whispered Naruto, finding it hard for himself to speak. His other self just stared at him, as if he expected Naruto to know what was happening. His other self started to talk, even though he had never expected him to be able to. After all, this part of him only wanted to kill just in order to stay alive. "Mate, near, mate, who, what in the world did he mean? What do you want me to do about it? I'm a little tied up," Naruto mumbled weakly. He didn't think the monster version of himself would care about anything. The part of him that came from his fear and hatred of the people who wanted to hurt him for no reason. All because he was an evil spirit. It was something that, in a way, he had always known about. It seemed that when he did lose himself, he would come to this place, regaining the memories of the experiences until he woke back up. When he got back to the real world, he wouldn't remember anything. And this time wouldn't be any different. His other self just looked up before turning around to stare behind him. There was a bright light. It was much brighter than when his father would snap him out of it. It was brighter, softer emotions came from it. He had no idea who it was, but if this other him was here, then it had to mean something. He had no idea, but he felt like it had to mean something, whatever that was anyway. "Naruto, please come back," said a woman's voice, a voice that he knew. Eyes widening, he looked over at his other self and saw him nod. Red hair bobbing from his movement as he pointed to the source of the light. Was that he meant? That mate was Hinata. But she wasn't his mate, she was a human. Humans are meant to be with other humans, and he had to be with other demons. Even if he had no idea how that was to happen in the first place. "What do you mean by Hinata is our mate? If that is what you mean," Naruto whispered softly, not bothering to look up. "Mate, kind, caring, risk safety to save us. She nice, must be chosen. Smell nice too." Well, his other self did make some sense. Hinata did risk her life if his other self was already here with him. Hinata was nice and she smells good, too. It was soothing and caring, a scent that he felt like he could get lost in forever and ever, though he couldn't really be sure of it, at least not at this point. "I do care about her a great deal, but we would only put her in danger. No hurt. Want mate, never hurt mate." "Shut up. You are nothing but a monster. You hurt people, and Dad has claw marks on his back from when you dug your claws into his skin before we reverted back. You don't give a shit about anyone," shouted Naruto before lowering his head. He knew that this was all his fault. If he hadn't created this other part of him just to protect himself, none of this would be happening. But sadly, it was, and he knew that he had to do something to get past this, yet was there even a chance of that happening anymore? He had no idea anymore. "Mate waits," whispered his other self before Naruto felt the vines withering and disappearing. "Go to mate." He seemed so docile now. It was weird, but before Naruto could even ask anything else, his demonic part of him pushed him towards the light that was created by Hinata, the vines wrapping themselves around that other part of him until he was in danger once again. This was weird. Hinata heard a groan coming from Naruto. He opened his eyes for a brief moment, eyes that she adored as they were their bright ocean blue once more. Naruto came back to her. Smiling, she whispered thank goodness. Naruto blinked slowly at her for a moment before he fell forward into her arms. His body was worn out from the fight, and his other darker half using a lot of power. Power that he had not fully learned to use yet. Turning to the four shocked masters, Hinata called out, "We have to get him to his room. He needs rest." The others nodded, before rushing to the sleeping blonde. The red had already started to bleed out, leaving only his ponytail crimson as always. Yet, what confused her was how was it that he had seemed almost like a demon. She would have to ask him some questions later, for now she would let him rest.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.